Welcome to Psyche Magic, a podcast about self-discovery and the subconscious, where we explore the symbolic language of dreams, tarot, and archetypes. I'm your host, Jordan Hale. I'm a psychotherapist based in Nashville, Tennessee. Each episode, I'll hold a casual conversation with various artists and healers about their shadow work practices. We pull tarot cards, unpack a significant dream or dream theme, and discuss their personal healing arts practices. So please grab a cup of something delicious and stay a while. While aspects of this podcast may feel therapeutic, it is never meant to take the place of therapy. Welcome back to Psyche Magic. Spring has sprung, and we are celebrating new beginnings on many fronts here at Psyche Magic. I am now writing a free weekly newsletter. You can sign up via our website, psychemagicpodcast.com. So our subscribers got this news last week, but for those who haven't heard, I am thrilled to announce that Daniel and I are expecting a baby girl. The guest date for delivery is August 5th, and we could not be more excited to meet her. Stepping into the role of mother feels like such a weighty responsibility and such a magical adventure all rolled into one. A true hero's journey, to say the least. But I am fiercely committed to maintaining my role as artist and creative, as well as mother. I am hoping to be able to continue our monthly interview episodes of the podcast, as well as the weekly newsletter, as an ongoing offering. As always, thank you so much for being here and for following along on this ever-evolving expedition. While I may have had lofty visions for a circle community earlier this year, I've been reflecting on realistic expectations for my bandwidth and creativity after this little being arrives in my arms, and I am shifting things accordingly. I'm thinking of moving both the podcast and the weekly newsletter to Substack, where we can continue the salon, our communal ritual for inviting creative flow and corresponding discussion group, and readers and listeners can leave comments and start chat forums. I will, of course, keep you all updated as I work on this transition, and if you're already receiving our newsletter, you'll be invited automatically when the time comes. Perhaps Circle will be another more robust iteration of this budding community down the line. Speaking of motherhood and fatherhood, this episode celebrates one of the founding fathers of the field of psychology, Carl Jung, whose praises you've heard me singing since day one of the show. Sigmund Freud is touted as one of the first founders of Western psychology to place an emphasis on the unconscious, though wise women and healers and indigenous practitioners from around the world have been working with dreams and the unconscious for centuries. But Freud contributed many lasting tenets of the field, not the least of which is free association, which is an incredible technique for creators to get in touch with unconscious wisdom and provocative collective material. But his protege, Carl Jung, took his ideas so much further. Where Freud tended to get hung up on his wish fulfillment and/or psychosexual interpretation of almost all dream content, we could at least partially blame repressed Victorian society, perhaps. Jung was more interested in the symbolic and spiritual and collective aspects of working with dreams and fantasies. This led him to the concept of the shadow, those aspects of ourselves and our systems and societies that we habitually repress, deny, or do not claim, more often than not projecting them onto others instead. In his own words, quote, "If you imagine someone who is brave enough to withdraw all of his projections, then you get an individual who is conscious of a pretty thick shadow. Such a man has saddled himself with new problems and conflicts. He has become a serious problem to himself, as he is now unable to say that they do this or that. They are wrong, and they must be fought against. Such a man knows that whatever is wrong in the world is in himself. And if he only learns to deal with his own shadow, he has done something real for the world. He has succeeded in shouldering at least an infinitesimal part of the gigantic, unsolved social problems of our day. Unquote. You'll hear me use the term shadow work often as a tenet of my work and of the themes we explore on the show. By examining the unconscious material presented to us in our dreams and other altered states of consciousness, we are able to more fully integrate the different aspects of our experience and move towards a greater sense of wholeness, acceptance, and interconnection. This is not to say the shadow is something we can ever fully integrate. That is besides the point, and an idea that I would argue is rooted in the more problematic and self-help oriented aspects of the field that I have come to deeply mistrust. The idea of the shadow is that it is never fully available to us, which is the point. It's the pursuit, the slow peeling back of the layers of awareness. Therein lies the medicine. Another excellent way to explore our personal associations and resonant symbols is through working with tarot and/or oracle cards. Anyone who's familiar with modern esoteric discourse has probably seen the memes indicating tarot as a tough love version of this process, with oracle cards being depicted as much more soft and gentle. This is because oracle cards tend to explore more broad and simplified themes, whereas tarot cards tend to be more mysterious and complex. I personally love combining both tarot and oracle in my personal practice. While we have historically explored tarot on the show specifically, today's episode incorporates oracle cards for the very first time, as our guest, Jungian life coach and dream worker Melissa Grace, has just completed an incredible oracle deck of her very own. It's a delightful interview with plenty of juicy dream work discussion and methodology, all through a very Jungian lens for my fellow enthusiasts. And now, without further ado, let's get into my interview with Melissa Grace. Welcome to Psyche Magic. Thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you for having me, Jordan. This is wonderful. Really excited.
Me too. I've really been looking forward to this. I feel like working with someone who is well-versed and very tuned into Jungian concepts is just, it's always a favorite of mine. I feel like those conversations get to go really deep and get really rich. So I'm very excited.
Wonderful. Me too. I could talk about Jung all day long. So I'm very, very happy to be here to do that.
It's kind of a never-ending spiral.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. In so many ways to go. You could really talk about it for years without ever taking a break.
Forever. I know. Oh my gosh, so true. But we won't do that to you, listeners.
Yes,
we'll talk for like an hour.
Yes. Yeah.
Give you a little taste. Well, so Melissa, if you wouldn't mind, please just introduce yourself for the listeners. Let them know a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yes. So my name is Melissa Grace. I am a Jungian life coach and a dream worker, a dream circle facilitator, a clairaudient, clairvoyant, and a co-creator of the Dreaming Oracle with Cara Roxanne, who is an artist in England. Yes.
Amazing. I can't wait to hear about that deck, Melissa. That sounds super cool.
Yeah.
And you're so good. You pronounce Carl Jung's name in the correct pronunciation, which I am a Texas Southern girl. I'm always like, Carl Jung.
No, but the thing is,
so good about saying it correctly.
It's both. And I have a friend who is a German speaker, and he said, basically, you can do it both. Because when I was naming my business, The Night is Young, I was afraid that it should be Jung. And he said, that's no, fair. You can make it The Night is Young. So I go back and forth. So just so you
Thank you
know.
for clearing that up. That makes
Yeah.
me feel so much better.
Yes,
Oh
you
my
know that. No,
gosh.
I have a Jungian analyst friend who is German and was trained in Zurich, and she always corrects me and says Jungian.
Ooh.
So in a way, I'm kind of confused myself, but I do it both
Okay.
ways.
This is so silly, but I kind of feel like he wouldn't have it any other way, honestly.
Yes, I
Like, you know what
actually
I mean?
agree with you. You know, I really agree with you because he said the last thing I want to do is be a Jungian. So he probably wouldn't want to be a Jungian or a Jungian.
Isn't that hilarious?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that just cracks me up.
Yeah.
Okay, well, in the spirit of
Mhm.
multiple things being true at once,
Yes.
let's pull our card. So,
Okay, great.
I was telling Melissa before we started recording that I brought a couple of different decks today. I brought my classic Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck that we often use on the show because it's just so rich in its symbols and imagery. And I also have an oracle deck called Sacred Symbols that is a lovely deck. It's like a completely different flavor. It's actually very simple and it uses just like these sort of beautiful, very kind of primary colors and very
Mm.
simple images.
Mhm.
So maybe I'll just get your intuitive sense, Melissa,
Mhm.
if one or
Mhm.
the other of these decks feels more appropriate today, or both. It could be both. But how are you feeling?
I just got such a strong major hit for the sacred
Hmm.
symbols. So I
Okay,
feel like
good.
that
Okay,
feels
good.
like the best for me. That feels I got a
Perfect.
very strong hit on that. So let's go with that.
Perfect. Okay, we will use that. Love it. Love a strong sense. Now, can I just ask you while I'm shuffling, when you get your sort of, I mean, we can call them psychic
Mhm.
messages, right? Like
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
my intuition. Um, I like to use that word where it fits.
Yes.
Do you get them in a certain kind of sense-based way?
Mhm.
Is it like a physical sensation?
Mm.
Is it like a knowing or a hearing? How does the information usually come through for you?
Well, my strongest is clairaudient in that so
Okay.
I literally hear I hear information in my right ear specifically.
Okay,
And
wow. Yes.
but that right in that moment I felt it deeply in my body, in my gut,
Oh,
in my
love
whole
it.
body, and it was like a
Love it.
energy was coming down from the cosmos into my body and saying that was the right deck. And
Beautiful.
I'm also clairvoyant, so I see things too. So I have all the sentience, but my, clairaudient is my strongest. But in that moment, I was clairsentient.
Okay. Yes, exactly. Thank you for the distinction. And I think it's really fun to remind listeners and all of us that most of us have access to some of
Absolutely.
this information, right? I think that if we're paying attention, it is
Mm-hmm.
coming through. But for most of us, there's one sense that tends to
Mm-hmm.
lead in a
That's
lot of
right.
ways and be the strongest just naturally. For me, I would say it's more clairsentience. So
Mm-hmm.
even when I'm pulling the card right now,
Mm-hmm.
I'm noticing that as I pass by a particular card, I get a very strong sensation in my sort of third eye, like a little
Right on.
tingling
Yes.
sensation. Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
how I know
Very.
it's time to pull. So,
Very. Oh, that's
um,
great. That's so cool. You get a little tingle when you know when to time it pull. That's great.
okay, so here's what we got. We pulled the card
Oh my God.
transformation,
That's my
which is just,
favorite, one of my favorite symbols.
well, there you
Is
go.
I have a big, huge butterfly in my office.
Oh, I love it, Melissa. I
That's
love it. That's
excellent.
perfect.
And it's going on my logo too. So it's just really
Good.
amazing.
That's so funny. Our
Mhm.
logo for the show is like a moth symbol.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So for the listeners who can't see the card, it's just a beautiful kind of light orange color, and there's
Mhm.
this black sort of imprint of a beautiful butterfly, and it seems to me like sort of the classic monarch orange and black lines and colors, and the card just says transformation, and it's card 19. So I will
Mm.
read from the little guidebook about what this card is all about. So it says, the butterfly goes through many stages before it becomes the beautiful creature it is. Honor your process and allow your beauty to be seen by all. Wear more color to help announce the arrival of your exquisite transformation. Meditate on this when you want to call in more beauty, grace, and acceptance during times of transition.
Mm.
Love that.
Beautiful.
Love that.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah. Anything that you want to say about that card, that message, what that brings up for you now? Just an invitation, no pressure.
Mhm. Well, I have to say that just um, I think it's perfect for me personally because we're just about to birth the Dreaming Oracle cards, and so we're in this transition place, which is important for me personally as an author and coming out. You know, this is my first really major public work, even though I've been in publishing for many, many years as a writer.
Exciting.
This is
That's
the
huge.
first thing, and so it's a very big transition for me personally, and yeah, so that's what it brings up, and it feels really exciting, but it also demands a lot of me in my own personal growth as a person to kind of step into the role. I don't know if that's the right word, but it just to put
Sure.
my creative work out into the world requires a kind of transformation of me uh, as an
It makes so
introvert
much
going
sense.
out into the world, you know, invisibility and all that kind of thing. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. There would be a process there for you, right? Yeah.
yes, yeah, yeah. And also, the deck is basically a summation of everything I've learned in my life in the last 54 years as someone who's been in analysis for 20 some years, 25 years or whatever. So in a way, it's like saying, this is who I am and or this is what I've learned and this is what I'm offering to the world. And that's a big, beautiful, transformation, a big, beautiful butterfly moment. So for me personally,
Absolutely.
that's very important. And it's also really important to my work as part of why butterfly is going to be part of my new logo because as I'm sure you know, as a dream worker, Jungian therapist, that transformation is such an enormous part of our work, helping people transform to embrace their authentic selves, to become more of who they really are through working with dreams. Working with dreams is a transformational process. So
Exactly.
that's why it's psyche magic, the psyche magic,
Yes, it
Yeah.
is a what I would call a magical process
Oh,
because
absolutely.
and I love what you said about like helping people become more of who they already are because it's this
Hmm.
sort of uncovering that
Hmm.
happens, right?
Hmm.
Honestly, I chose the sort of moth butterfly symbol for my logo because of the sort of root origin words of psyche, which
Hmm.
means soul, but also means butterfly. Like those words were
Oh, wow. I did
intertwined.
not know that.
Yes,
I did not know.
yes.
Oh, that is so perfect. That's
Isn't that
wonderful.
amazing that they come from the same
Oh,
sort
that's
of etymology?
beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And we're
Oh,
in it for transformation, right, Melissa?
yeah.
I mean, that's why I do this work. I'm always saying like if you want to go deep, let's work together. If you don't, that's okay. There's lots of other people you can work with, but like that's
Exactly.
what I'm here to do.
Exactly. Exactly. It's,
Yeah.
it's not quick solution, cognitive
Hmm.
behavioral stuff. It is much deeper than that. And
Yeah.
I remember hearing Marion Woodman speak. This is on a recorded lecture that I was listening to many years ago. And for the listeners who don't know her, she was
One of the
a
greats.
renowned Jungian analyst who is no longer with us. But she talked about one of the major great, I mean, she was amazing. One of the things she said is if you want a spiritual quality in your therapeutic work, in your self-development work, work with Jungian
Yes.
psychology because it brings in all dimensions of our experience as human beings. I mean, I've always been a very spiritual person, and I remember my first therapist when I was in my 20s.
Okay.
She had absolutely no idea what to do with that part of me. She just did not know. And so as a result, I worked with her for many years, but there was a part of me that was left behind. So when I began Jungian analysis, in 2001, I'd already been through a good 10 years or 12 years of regular therapy, but that's when the spiritual part of myself really could come in. And that's when I really started to own my authentic self and my authentic expression.
Yes. Oh, that's so
Um,
beautiful, Melissa. I that's so powerful because I do feel like as someone who, went through a master's level grad school program to try to become a therapist, and found that I was often feeling like this aspect was left out of all of my training and everything I learned. There was
Exactly.
no room for spirit and soul, right? Like it was just off the table. And that really did a number on me for a while. Like it made me feel like maybe there was
Yes.
something wrong with me or unprofessional about me for wanting to lean into those things. And it wasn't until I had a
Mhm.
couple of professors that were, in fact, Jungian in their training
Mhm.
that I started to be able
Mhm.
to see that maybe there's room for all of the above.
Exactly.
But it took a
Exactly.
while, and it really wasn't until you said kind of like early 30s. It was like late 20s,
Yeah.
early 30s that I started opening myself back up to those things more.
I think for me, I was spiritually
Mhm.
sensitive from a very young age. And my process has been about bringing my spirit into my
Mm,
body. I think for some people, their process is they're already kind of more in their body and they need to find spirit.
yeah.
But either way, dream work helps you.
Yeah.
For me, I like to say that Jungian analysis and working with dreams brought together heaven and earth for
Mm,
me. It brought together spirit and body. And it doesn't really matter which part of that is more in need of development for you. It's it working with images brings all those multiple parts of ourselves together, working with
oh,
dreams and images.
exactly. Because symbol it's a container that can hold multiple truths, multiple meanings simultaneously, right? Like
Exactly.
if this is an art form, then that's why it's the medium of this type of art and this type of work.
And yeah, it's a beautiful thing to say. And I mean, also a symbol is a living entity.
Yes.
You know, it's a living entity that is a portal, really, into the unconscious, but it serves as a mediary between our conscious minds and our unconscious. It's pulsating with the energy of the unconscious, but it's bringing that into this world, this into the world of the conscious mind.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's why they're so very, very potent
Oh,
images.
yes. I just love it. I get so excited.
Yeah.
Now, I would love to take this moment to transition to talking about the actual dream that you brought today, that you want to
Yes, yeah, let's
present.
let's
I feel
let's
like
talk
that
about the
feels like
dream.
the right moment. So
That
if you
does,
would
yeah.
just share it for the listeners, and then we can sort of unpack it together and use it as a framework to talk about the way that you approach Dreamwork specifically and some of the symbolic, like imagery related forms that you might use to start teasing apart these symbols. So yeah, go ahead and share, and
Yeah.
then we'll just dive in.
Okay. All right. So this is a dream of a woman who is, I would call, a creative. She has a creative profession and very artistic person. In the dream, she is in an apartment that is on the second level in an older city. The apartment is big and spacious and has high ceilings, and it's filled with all the things she loves, books and music and plants. In the corner of the apartment is a male friend of hers, and the two of them are hanging out. And then she walks out onto this big balcony that is part of the apartment. And she sees the moon, and it's this beautiful moon. She says, shining its light. She said, shining its light. And she sees it, and she's inspired to dance and sing in the moon's presence. And then she notices this man on the street below, and he is kind of taunting her, catcalling her. He seems to be a bit of a outlier. She's not sure if he has a substance abuse problem or something is going on, but he's not a welcome presence. So she's captured his attention, even though she doesn't want to. She decides to go back inside. And just as she's kind of making that decision, he is jumping up into the air to try to get onto the balcony. And just as she's kind of escaping that and going inside, she looks at the moon and notices that it has transformed into the infinity
Mm,
sign. When she gets back into the apartment, her friend is gone, and and then he comes back in and without knowing what has happened with the man or anything, said, I've taken care of the man. And she was very scared and upset. But then when he said that, she felt relieved. And that was the end of the
Yes.
dream.
Yes. Well, and I love that you're already weaving in these pieces of her sort of emotional experience that corresponded with these different
Mm-hmm.
moments in the dream.
Exactly.
I'm guessing, and based on what I know and have learned about dream work, those can be such potent clues, right? As to where
Absolutely. The
the through
emotions are
line
very
is.
important.
Yes, yes. So I guess, Melissa, just maybe walk us through, like, how would you go about beginning to approach a dream like this with a client? Where would you
Yeah.
start even?
Well, I always, I like to ask, the first thing I like to ask is what was the most compelling image in the dream for you? And for her, it was the moon and the infinity sign. Also, the big, beautiful apartment and how wonderful it felt for her to be in there. And I will also ask, how did the dream feel? How did it? And for her, there were two different emotions, which I've already touched upon. One was the joy and happiness of dancing and singing on the balcony in the moon's presence, and also the joy that she felt being in the apartment itself, and then the fear of the invader. So those are all things that we began with. So with this particular example, when I work with a dreamer, I do give them the option of pulling an oracle card, just the way we did at the beginning of the podcast, at the beginning of the dream work. And because I am a intuitive reader, I'll give them a reading, quick reading. I'll pull a card, and then we'll work on the dream. So at the beginning of the quick reading, I got a sense that the streamer, what I said to her was, "Don't be afraid to shine your light."
Yeah.
I that's what I said, and it's okay if your light is bright. Then I picked a card for her from the African Goddess Rising Oracle card. And the card she got was Nefertiti,
Oh,
and it was alchemy. So the card brought in, so the channeled message seemed to directly correlate immediately with the moon shining bright.
yes.
And then less obvious, but what became more apparent as we started working on the dream was the alchemical component of the dream, the alchemical experience of the dream. That was how we set the stage. And I can't quite remember, but she may not have even recognized that the reading correlated with the moon shining bright, but it became apparent pretty
Sure.
quickly
Sure.
as we were working on the layers of the dream. It is interesting sometimes how an obvious correlation to me may not be obvious for the dreamer.
Good point.
And that is because the images are in the unconscious. We aren't aware of what the images are trying to speak to us.
Their own sort of language, right? In a
Yeah,
way.
exactly.
Yeah.
So the moon, and of course we work with the concept of everything we dream about is a part of ourselves. Of course, that isn't always true, but
And this is a particular way of working with dreams that I've come to hear called subjectivity, which basically is
mm,
this idea that every
mm,
sort of key figure in the dream could represent an aspect of ourselves, right? Figure or
yes,
symbol,
yes.
even.
Yeah, exactly. Any symbol or figure. I mean, it's not always true, but it's true a lot of the time. And it's also not the only way to work with dreams. There are many ways.
It's an interesting lens.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we were looking at the dream through that lens.
Yeah.
And so the idea that the moon was herself, that she was reveling in her own light. And then comes, the more interesting part of the dream, because there's all these positive elements in the dream. So then we kind of was like, the apartment is a part of herself too. This big,
Yeah.
spacious, beautiful apartment with everything that she loves. These are all parts of her and who she is. And also this invader guy, this
Mhm.
invader person.
A little bit of a wild card, little trickster guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. So that is the thing that we kind of spent, we started to spend more time with. Often when there is what I will call a shadow figure in a dream like that, that can be a little threatening, that we might work different aspects of the dream so we get kind of comfy with the dream realm first, and then look at the more difficult or not so comfortable aspect of the dream.
That makes sense. You work up to the more difficult material, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Unless someone immediately says the invader was the most compelling part of the dream,
Fair enough.
then that's like, okay, I'm ready, then that person is ready to work with the invader.
Yeah.
But still, I think in dreams where there's a pretty major shadow element, I'd like to identify what the resources are in the dream. What is the dream presenting that may be a resource to help support the dreamer while they're confronting a more difficult part of the dream? And here we have these so many resources, so much beauty, just enjoyment that the dreamer is experiencing, connection, spiritual connection to the self that she's already dreaming, already experiencing in the dream. So there was a great place to jump off of when we started looking at the invader.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Well, like we've been saying, there are all of these different sort of elements and layers in a dream. And so the invader
Yes.
had their own sort of character profile of symbols and associations. And
Yes. Well, it's interesting. Okay, when we start looking at associations, because that's the next question I asked.
Okay,
what's
yes.
the most compelling aspect? And then we start looking at the associations to the compelling aspect, and then also all the different other components of the dream. So one of the things that not the invader, but the male friend.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there was a male friend she was hanging out with, and he was a very supportive person in her life, full of praise and very welcoming, and just a general good vibe person who she felt really supported by. So he's in the dream. And so that's a part that there's that. And the invader, when I asked her to kind of just contemplate, like, what feels like it impinges on her, shining her light, what could be something that might start to invade that sense of feeling really good in herself or in her own light. And she said immediately, self-doubt. So it was a really quick answer, and those are always the best kind.
It's right there. Yeah. It's clear. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. So the self-doubt, but the thing is often these conflicts within us, like I want to be out there, I want to shine my light, I want to believe in myself. There we have perhaps an unconscious conflict that's I don't really know. Am I really up to the task? Do I
Not
really
sure
have something
how
to offer?
safe
And,
that is or realistic that is, or yeah.
And do I feel good? I don't really feel good about myself enough to do that. There's so many things that come in, but we might, if we're really focused on that conscious intention of being and this person is an artist out into the world, and that is like her conscious intention, then the things that maybe we don't want to deal with so much get pushed into shadow. So for here, I thought this what was this amazing thing was going on in the dream. Here she is in this big spacious apartment, and to me, and this really resonated with her. This is an idea I offered, is that the apartment was spacious enough to hold the shadow aspect. And this also brings us to the infinity sign.
Yes.
On that note, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
So in Jungian psychology, as you know, there is an archetype called the self, capital S. And the archetype of the self is the totality of all of who we are. And the best way I can explain this, I was thinking about this like a long, long time ago, and this was in the 90s. There was a film called Powder, about this kind of almost extraterrestrial person, but just not a total normal human, who used all of his brain. All of his brain, and as a result, he had like supernatural powers, like because it said that as humans we only use a small part of our brain. So it's like as who we see ourselves to be as people is just a small part of who we actually are.
Makes
in
so much
terms of
sense.
our
Yes.
divine identity.
Yes.
And the self, capital S, is who we really are, like really. And we get tastes of it. And part of the process of becoming what we call individuated, which is basically our authentic selves, who we really are, apart from familial conditioning and social conditioning and all that, is part of how we become that person is having these experiences of the self, like these little tastes of it, that when we bring back then we integrate into our person.
That's
and we
right.
have an experience, and we also become our authentic selves by integrating our shadow.
Yes, because that is a part of who we also are and a part of our experience.
Exactly.
Yes.
We are both, we are both divine and immortal, and
Yes.
human. And in this dream, it feels like those parts are very much present. Both are there. There's the infinity because the self is infinite, it's transpersonal, is there. And the shadow, that self-doubt, is there too. There's an alchemy that wants to happen, an alchemy where this magic ingredient of the self and then the magic ingredient of the shadow,
Mhm.
in a way, there wants to be a connection there, a communion there.
Sure.
And when we were working this dream, there was the energy, when you evoke the self, I find there's an enormous energy that comes with that.
Mm.
It truly feels magical. When we were working this dream, we were both kind of high. It was
Yes.
like the moon and the infinity,
Sort of
and we're just there.
expansive.
It's so
Yes.
expansive, so expansive. So there was a lot of wowing going on. Wow. And as she started to realize, wow, I'm the moon, I'm infinity, I'm the moon, and yeah, okay, and here's the self-doubt, that's part of me too, but boy, I can handle that. And in the dream, it's like that friendly, that warm part of herself, who's full of praise for her, does indeed win. He takes care of the guy, he takes care of the self-doubt. So it's like, it's such a beautiful healing dream where she is the container for all these different aspects of herself to come in and connect to each other and say, okay, we're all part of the whole. And this experience gave her more access to her own power as a person.
So empowering. It's that interconnection, like between the parts of the self, but also just interconnection with all that is. And that's just an incredible
Exactly.
feeling.
And that is a very important part of, the infinity sign, that was a very important symbol to her for that reason, the interconnection of everything.
That's right.
So it was really, really remarkable.
Amazing. And now this was happening in the context of a group or a dream circle. Is that correct?
Yes, it was. And so everybody was pretty.
But that raises this sort of
opposite.
power, doesn't it?
Yes. So you're in a circle experience. Everybody's experiencing it and seeing things and unfolding. And I've simplified the process, for the sake of talking about it, about all the different things that were woven in. But different people had different ideas about things. And as we started to unfold the dream, the layers of it just became more and more apparent. And then at the end, we returned back to the alchemy card and we saw, wow, this dream really was alchemical. And then at the very last minute too, we looked at the image of Nefertiti. I'm sorry, I'm not pronouncing that right.
I'm sure there's a few different ways of saying it too.
And in this card, she's a very strong woman. She's got this stance. She's in this stance of power and confidence. And we looked at that card, and the dreamer looked at herself, and she saw herself in that card. She even had a picture of herself in a similar stance. And it was really remarkable, actually. So that brought the dream back full circle to the beginning card, and that sense of confidence that the dream brought her, and that the original card and reading were hinting at.
Exactly.
So all of those parts started to threaded together in their
right.
own alchemy. And the result was this this sense of confidence that was really authentic, really true,
Yes.
because you can be confident, the kind of confidence that you get to without facing your demons is not the same thing that happens when you really face those things that are undermining yourself.
So
and you
true.
really connect with those things, and really acknowledge them. It's a much different experience.
Yes.
And the dream image has really allowed her to do that.
Yes, there's a hero's journey there, right? Of
Yeah,
this sort
exactly.
of conquering and overcoming and like, okay,
Yes.
I can handle whatever comes my way. Like, I've got this.
Yeah, I'm the moon.
I'm the moon
infinity.
after all.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I am infinity after all.
And
isn't that
actually
the
infinity,
truth?
so
Yes,
I'm pretty
exactly.
powerful.
We all, my personal belief is that we are all infinity.
That's right.
That our divine nature is infinite.
Well, and I love that you incorporate the cards because that just allows for another layer of synchronicity and connection, right? Like the ways that those symbols really resonate with what's about to come up in the group. I think that would just make it even more powerful. It's lovely.
No, I mean, it just happens over and over and over again. And it blows my mind. I mean, it blows my mind because I'm in it. And even though I've experienced that kind of synchronicity many, many, many times, it still amazes me.
It's still amazing.
When it happens, it's still because because I can't predict it.
Exactly. Yes.
And it doesn't always happen, but it happens a lot, that kind of synchronicity. And I think, there is a real divination like that, like working with the cards and working with the dreams is very similar because you're just working with the consciousness. You're working with the unconscious. It's all, as you were saying, connected.
Yes.
It's all connected. Oracle cards bring, tap into the unconscious just the way dreams do. And so to me, it's an easy relationship between those two things.
I feel like I've told a lot of people who don't know where to start with dream work and working with these more like unconscious parts, especially people who maybe are struggling to remember their dreams. So they're like, I want to start this, but I don't have a lot of material. I always say, start playing around with Oracle Tarot. Like, just see what comes up and see how it resonates for you.
That's a great suggestion.
Make some associations with whatever symbols are there in the card and just practice that way. So it's a really great way to sort of enhance these practices, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
That feels like a great opportunity to talk about your Oracle deck, Melissa. Please tell us about it because you're in the process, as you said earlier, of this very sort of culminative work of yours, right? Yeah. It's like really encapsulates a lot of your work in your life. So please tell us about it.
Yes, it is interesting. Just as a jumping off point of what you were saying, that we do have spreads in the deck that talk about how to work with dreams with the cards. But I will leave that behind for a second to just say, so the deck started in a kind of serendipitous way.
Of course it did.
The origins of the deck are in a dream circle, actually.
Cool.
I met Cara in 2012 at a dream circle in a tiny little Northern California beach town. And she's British and she was here. Her partner at the time was here on a long-term work assignment. And she was a dream worker looking for community, and I was going through a huge health crisis.
Yes.
And I had traveled 2 hours to get to the circle just because I needed the community. And so that's where we met, and it was then that I kind of knew we had a connection. But fast forward many years, and she was back in England, and we kept in touch on Facebook Messenger of all things. But anyway, she was posting these beautiful paintings, these beautiful watercolor paintings that originated from her own dreams. And I just said, boy, they would make a great Oracle deck. She said, sure, great,
let's do it.
But I didn't know she was actually going to keep me to my word. But she did it. And we had planned to start, we writing on it, and then the pandemic hit exactly on that day, we locked down hit that day. we thought, okay, I guess it's going to be our lockdown project. So we met every week and we wrote on one card, or we would work on a dream and she would paint a card based on the dream. And then we would
Amazing.
write about it. And it was this very organic process. She was a mom and, so some days it didn't happen, and I had a job and she's got a job.
Of
And
course.
but we snuck it all in, and it took 4 years.
Yes.
But now it's finally coming to fruition, and it's really, really exciting. And as I was reflecting on it, I was thinking, as I read it, and I was editing it and reading it, improving it, it just dawned on me that basically the writing I did for the cards is the culmination, yes, of everything I've learned. It's a lot of what I've learned over the course of my life and facing my personal challenges, and what I learned through being in Jungian analysis for 23 years. And that is a very, I'm very, very grateful for Kara's earth energy that, helped us to really stick with it,
Absolutely. Being able to stick with something for 4 years like that.
We had the consistency, and it was not always easy. And I'm really grateful that I had the opportunity to express that part of myself. It feels very much like a part of my own personal individuation process, making the deck.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, and I'm really hoping that it has something to offer others too.
Exactly.
That because it comes from the dream space, that it meets people in that liminal place of where the conscious and unconscious are meeting, where transformation can happen.
Yes. There's so much resonance and power in this process that you've described for both of you. It sounds like, I mean, she's
absolutely, yes.
painting her dreams.
Yes, he's painting
incredible.
her dreams and writing poetry also. Yeah.
It makes sense to me that, I don't know, I don't want to use the word best, but just that like some of the most powerful art and art forms come out of that very process. Like you can see how much this was working on the artist, and then they're sharing that with you, and it's working on you as the viewer. It's beautiful.
Yes, I have experienced that, and I believe that is very true. I feel that energy in these cards. So I think it's really, Kara has her own very unique style. And she also wrote poetry for each piece, for each card too. That is beautiful. And it really comes from the depth of her being, her paintings, and as does her writing. And for both of us, I do think that when art comes from that very deep place, that very, spiritual place, that it has more of a capacity to affect others. And it is my deepest hope that is true for this deck.
Yes, that you're about to birth into the world.
Yes, exactly. I'm about to birth.
So your friend did all the illustrations. These were her paintings. And then she did some poetry to go along with them. And then you were writing some of the, I would imagine, like the guidebook text.
Yes, we both actually wrote the guidebook. She wrote also, so she did the poetry.
Yes.
And she also wrote her own meaning, and I wrote my own meaning. And we generally, we would pick a painting and we would write on it and she wouldn't tell me what she thought the painting was about.
I love that.
I would intuit it. And most of the time, what happened was completely complementary. Sometimes I had to rewrite things to more match her vision of something, but it wasn't that often.
Sure.
And so, it was kind of, that also was kind of magical, that we emerged with our own unique perceptions that were different, but yet complementary. I mean, mine tended to be more straightforward, more psychology or a psychological explanation or something, and hers were more poetic and evocative. But both of them were always rooted in our experiences in Jungian psychology, because she too has been in analysis for many years. And So, and we both have certificates in Jungian studies. So that was the grounding for the work. And she also was very intuitive and psychic.
Sounds like it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then she brought in another dream that we worked on together of a figure that her carrying the weight of a person on her back and being taken out into the ocean, swept out into the sea. And when we worked a dream we realized that her relationship to that person that she was carrying had to change, but it became the weight card, a card of a figure carrying houses on its back,
Oh,
which are
wow. Yes.
the stories and the issues of others,
Yes.
the weight of the stories and issues of others that is not really ours,
That's
and
right.
that we need to release in order to really express ourselves fully, in order to really find our power. And that was true for her on a personal level. And then that experience became a card. So, yeah.
Amazing. And such a I mean, for me, that's so relatable, like to someone in the sort
Hmm.
of healing arts
Hmm.
field. That's so much of our work is to just learn how to not be carrying around other people's
Yeah,
stuff all the time. It's
absolutely.
not
As
ours
healers,
to carry around. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think so many sensitive people and artists and creatives and healers and people and therapists and life coaches and all of us spiritual workers, intuitives and
Yes.
everything, that is a big problem.
I know.
Like,
An ongoing lesson.
it's an ongoing lesson, like not to take it on, not to take it on. And I think, when we are very empathetic human beings, it's very easy, because we can feel other people's suffering, to make it our own. And so learning to release that weight,
That's right.
become rooted in the self, to move forward in the world and be in our light, if we're going to
And
weave
be in our
together all
light
that
because we are
good.
the moon.
Yeah, because we are the moon, and
I love it, Melissa. I love it. We're already like pretty much out of time, so we will have to leave it
okay,
here. But what I would love to do is I would love for you to just walk listeners through some of your current offerings, ways that
yeah,
they can engage with your work. If they're going to show up for a dream circle, what does that entail? What
yeah,
happens? Who's there? What are we doing? So walk us through a little
yes.
bit of that, if you would, please.
Sure, absolutely. So, my dream circles are online, and when you come for a dream circle, if you haven't ever done dream work before, I will walk you through some of the basic steps of dream work before
Great.
we begin.
Great. You don't have to be an expert. You can learn. Yeah.
No, you don't, especially for the Wednesday evening group is like all levels of
Great.
people. And then I pull a card if you want. I will do a quick reading and pull a card for you from the many different oracle decks I have. And then somebody will offer to work their dream, and I will write the dream down and I'll read it back, because often a dreamer doesn't ever get to hear their dream read to them. So I will read
Good
it
point.
back. The dreamer gets to correct me on anything I got wrong. And then I'll offer my initial observations and my initial questions, asking those things like, what's the most compelling part of the dream? How did you feel in the dream? What are your associations to that compelling image or any of the images in the dream to begin with? And after a few minutes of that, then I open up to the group and I guide them into, asking if they're beginners, like, what are the things that are interesting to you? What are the intuitive flashes that come to you? If it were your dream, what would those symbols mean for
I
you?
love that.
And asking the dreamer, what comes to you? What is there anything going on in your life that may be reflected in this dream? So
Mhm.
that is how it goes.
Lovely.
It's
Everybody
very
gets to
unscripted.
weigh in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody gets to weigh in. I make sure that no one dominates. I'm really very important to me that everyone gets to speak. So I will call on people and say, "Do you have something to
Absolutely.
add?" And if they don't, that's fine. But it's just very important to me that everyone, because it becomes really apparent that everybody has something to offer, that everybody has
Yes.
wisdom. Everyone has an intuitive hit or a piece of knowledge to share that becomes part of this tapestry that we weave, that is the understanding of the dream. It's a very sacred experience, actually.
Well, and it sounds like in the 2-hour circle, we're working with one dream. Is that correct?
Usually two. Usually
Okay.
the first hour is for one dream, and then we
Got
take
it.
a short break, and then we
I
move to
can
the
see how
second
you would
dream.
need at least an hour.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it goes faster than that, but often there's so much, there's so many different layers and richness that happens,
Yes.
that it's just, you just go deeper and deeper and deeper. And I don't like to stop that process. I like to work with the dream until it feels done,
It's great.
until someone feels like, you know what? they're full of soul food. They're full of it,
Yeah.
and they're going to digest it. I really love when an aha moment happens, and I like to allow enough time for those moments to happen.
It does take time.
Yes, I mean, and it is a beautiful experience to hold space for that, and I never ever tire of it. I absolutely love it.
That's how you know you're on the right track, right? You're like, this never gets old. So just keep doing it.
Yes.
That's awesome, Melissa. And you even run a group or a dream circle that's like specifically for therapists too. Is that right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
yes, I
love
do.
that.
Yeah.
I got to go to one of those.
Yes. That'll reopen up later in spring. I think in May. It's
awesome.
closed at the moment, but it'll reopen in May.
Awesome.
So, and there's a Sunday morning group and really anybody can come, but it's more people who are in it. Have been working with dreams for a longer period of time. So
that makes sense that you would have different sort of levels of experience. Yeah. Of course.
And I also offer for anyone who's really, interested, I do offer free 30-minute sessions so they can come in and just talk to me and, whether they want to do individual one-on-one dream work or Jungian coaching, or they want to join a circle, but they want to get to know me first.
That's really helpful.
They can bring a dream or not, or whatever, and we can pull some cards and we can have a half hour together where we just get to know each other's energy. And those are really easy to sign up for on my website, which is thenightisyoung.com.
Yes, which is a name that we love. We love a pun.
Yes, we love a pun. So
awesome.
So I invite people to visit the website or check out my Instagram, which is The Night is Young Dream Guide, or my Facebook page, which is The Night is Young. So
yes, and we will have links to all of these places.
And
then is there sort of an estimated date or time frame for the Oracle deck?
We're hoping that it arrives stateside in a couple weeks, late April, but we're taking pre-orders now on the dreamingoracle.com, and we are hoping to be shipping out by the end of May.
Amazing. Congratulations, Melissa.
Thank you so very, very much.
Huge. Yeah, it is not lost on me, like just the scale of a project like that, and then actually being able to birth it into the world. Incredible.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jordan, for acknowledging that and understanding it. It feels really good.
I'm so here for it. I'm like, this is amazing. I can't wait to see it.
Thank you.
Well, great. Melissa, this time flew by. We might have to do a part 2 one day, but this was a great way to just dip a toe in.
Yes.
Well, thank you for sharing your beautiful energy with us today. And I can't wait for listeners to get to learn more about you and your work and engage in the ways that I know they'll want to. So thank you so much for being here.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me, Jordan.
That's a wrap for this episode. Thank you again to my guest, Melissa Grace. May your Oracle deck and Dreamwork bring transformation and blessings to all who engage. If you haven't already, please take a moment now to subscribe, rate, and review us on your podcast app of choice. It really makes a difference and helps other people find the show. We'll see you back here next month with another amazing guest. And in the meantime, be sure to subscribe to my weekly newsletter via our website, psychemagicpodcast.com. Soon moving to Substack along with the podcast. We hope you'll also follow along with our shenanigans on Instagram and TikTok at Psyche Magic Podcast. Psyche Magic was produced and recorded by me, Jordan Hale. Editing for the episode is by Masuzu Inaga. Our theme music is by Young Summer. Artwork is by Annika Murphy. Special thanks go to Daniel Higbee, Grace Fuse, and Michael McMillan. Thank you so much for listening. I'll leave you with a question. If you must sleep through a third of your life, are you willing to sleep through your dreams too? Get your dream journals out, y'all. Until next time.